On the road, in the gym, at a coffee house. No matter where you listen, this is Prevention Perk. I'm Steve Miller with Mid-America PTTC. It's time to perk up our prevention efforts. My guest in this episode is Miss Sheryl Maxwell, an advocate from Southeast Missouri who for over 40 years has served her community, region, and the state in making a difference for individuals across the lifespan. Miss Sheryl is a program educator for Lincoln University Cooperative Extension, but mostly she is a champion of children and families who works tirelessly on their behalf. I hope you find as many treasures in this conversation as I did in being given the opportunity.
How did you get involved in doing prevention work? What was it that one day you woke up and you found yourself doing the kind of work that you're doing? How was it that you got started in this?
Well, I guess it was I moved down here in 75. And so I always liked kids, and I worked with them. And we had stuff that I would do through my church. And then at one time we had something called the Carport Club, and we would walk downtown Lilburn to get an ice cream cone to the park, so that was my, deal. And then along about 1990, I got a call, and Lincoln University had came to do one of their exploratory things about what was needing, a needs assessment. And so they called for my grandmother, who was a 4-H person and all that, but she was sick. And so then they said, well, do you still do the stuff with your kids? Because by then, Kids Beat had been born, and I was working, with kids, and we met during the summer every day. And when the summer was over, they wanted to continue and all of that kind of stuff like that. So Lincoln said, well, would you duplicate what you doing here in other communities? And I said, yeah. And so what happened is that I went to work for Lincoln, and the rest has been just, history. After a spell, like I say, you do the work. And I met Michael Kuti. And he told them to write a grant for me. And he said he would give me $10,000 per county to duplicate what I was doing in Lilburn. So I said, okay. And we started it because $10,000 was a lot. And he came back the next year to what we had, it was called Field Day. And he said the only thing he had to say is he was going to double what he was giving us. And we ain't went back. So I always try to come up with things that will safe environments that are alcohol, illegal drug, tobacco, bully-free. You know what I'm saying? Because I think you thrive in those kind of settings. I think that prevention is better than intervention anyway. So up until Desi had the bright idea to change how we could do after-school programs, I would take kids at 3 if they weren't if they were pot trained, because the earlier you get them, the better off you are. You know what I'm saying?
You're listening to Prevention Perk. The funder of this project, along with all other products of the Mid-America PTTC, is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Although funded by SAMHSA, the content of this recording does not necessarily reflect the views of SAMHSA. Visit the SAMHSA storefront, where you'll find hundreds of publications, including One Voice, One Community, which offers strategies for communities on collaborating with faith-based organizations to address the service needs of people living with mental illness, substance use disorders, or both. We'll put a link to this resource in the show notes.
It's easy to see how passionate you are. I think when you mentioned 1990, kind of, that was when it really kind of, I don't know, maybe took off. Funding back then was completely different than it is now, and you were kind of like shooting from the hip or making up your own kind of game back then.
When I first started, the first year, I promised the kids I would take them to Liberty Land down to Memphis. We never had a bus or nothing like that come into Lilburn. And so they asked me what did I want for my birthday that year. I said $1,000 to take y'all to Liberty Land, because that would have paid for the bus and for them to eat at McDonald's. So we prayed, and right before my birthday, I got a check for $750 from the VFW and $250 from the church we were at, which was $1,000. And that was the first trip. Or how we used to pick up pecans and sell them, or how we would get cans, and I would make a game out of them where they would, we'd have a bucket and the kids would get a can out of the bucket, run to the end, smash it, bring it back to the other, you know what I'm saying. There was no money. So, or there was a store in Lilburn called Dave's Best Way. And what they would do is every Monday, that's when our program was after the summer, I could go into the store and get whatever I needed and just go out of the store. And then when they got the computerized cash registers, I just had to run them through there. But what he did is he fixed it where all of the, like the Frito-Lay man and the Candy Man, all of the stuff that expired that was still good, they gave it to me. And so we had treats. We sold a lot of M&Ms, you know what I'm saying? And some of the time with the M&Ms that the kids didn't have enough at home to eat. And so a lot of times I end up paying, you know, for the M&Ms. But I mean, just kind of different fundraisers. So when Mr. Kuti came along with the $10,000 for each county I work with, or when Motorola gave me the first $10,000, man, I was swimming in gravy. You know, because you go from picking up plums, you know, whatever you can get, that's what you do. And we made it. Or, you know, every Christmas, 250 kids, you know, I figured out, they got $20 a piece that I would raise. You know, I hit my family up really hard, you know, because they were my biggest supporters. And then, you know, a couple of the business in Lilburn, they helped me out. But God always just made a way, you know. He always made a way. So when you ask me, and I look at that sometimes now, when we started, it wasn't always that easy, because sometimes when I took them on trips with Three Rivers Travel, sometimes I didn't have the money until I stepped on the bus. But they trusted me anyway. So now I look at it, and, you know, I told the kids, if you give me your best, I'll give you my best. And shucks, my kids, they didn't drink generic sodas. They didn't ride on. I just don't know how we came up with the money. I mean, God just always made some kind of way. But, you know, now I sit down and they're going to stay in the embassy suites. They ride up on a charter bus. They eat at the best restaurants. And And it's just the fact of you just say, write up a justification, because if I got them for that time, I know they're not going to do no drugs, alcohol, and they're not going to be bullied. So I heard somebody say about the favor of God is not fair, but favor is necessary. So when I look at it, I guess I just have had to favor God, because shucks, Mr. Chuck can tell you, if they made me mad before 9 o'clock, by 4 o'clock I was in Jeff City. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't have nothing, but it's just like the legislators, they took me under their wings. And we just been able to just keep moving forward. So if you ask me how, I don't know. And we still did. We would go on what we call the honors trip. And we would go to different colleges down south, like Tuskegee, Southern, Dillard, all of them. And I would call and get with their recruitment offices, and that would mean that, we would have to pay very little or little for them to visit the cafeterias and, all of that kind of stuff like that. I can't, and maybe I'm not supposed to say it was God. That was it. And so now it's just the fact almost that I pick up the phone and say, how does it happen? Or if I said yesterday, I need 250 boxes of produce in January or February, and I want to buy them from Old Time Produce in St. Charles because she got the best boxes in the state, and I'm told, write it up and send it in and let us see what we could do. I mean, a preacher told me the other day when he talked about me, he called it black girl magic. So I don't know if it's black girl magic. I don't know what kind of magic it is, but I called it favor and faith. You know what I'm saying is, that's the way it has done. And along the way, people like Moac was there, when we had Cedric the Entertainer, and he gave us $10,000, and I didn't know what to do with the money. You know what I mean? And there's somebody stood up and said, no, it's an agency called Moac, and they'll do your fiscal stuff for you. And they've been doing stuff, ever since then. If I need somebody, I got some money, and they said I need to put it here, I just put it there and requisition it, and Katrina, she keeps up with it, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's just like, not necessarily in this order, but I love God first, and I love the Bootheel, and I love the state of Missouri. I mean, I just, do. My favorite agency in the whole wide world is the Missouri Highway Patrol, because they've been always there to carry me, help me. When I got the idea of helping with food insecurities, how Robert Nodell, all I asked for was $5,000 to do an irrigation system. And I ended up getting enough money for several irrigation systems. We were able to buy shipping containers. We were able to buy tillers, you name it, so that people could grow food, mm-hmm. so they could feed themselves. Because, you go to the store, you know how high it is, and I don't see no change coming soon. It's like every time you go, your grocery bill increases. So if they learn how to cook and how they learn how to grow, they need to have that earth experience. You know what I'm saying? And we have several kids that have really bought into, the gardening, and because Lincoln is an agriculture school, it just makes sense.
I could see the kids really getting involved with that, because if they've never seen it, and then to experience gardening from, like, there's just dirt I'm looking at, and the next thing you know, they're bringing this plant to life by watering it and caring for it, and then realize, oh, I can eat that.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up knowing that, but somewhere in the last 50 years, that has changed, where people don't know what it's like to live from the earth, so to speak.
A drop of watermelon in the middle of the field, or there's a new program that'll be out probably early spring, and it'll be where we'll be able to distribute good produce boxes. And so I have maybe 30 or 40 seniors here that we deliver boxes to. So many will go to Kennett, so many will go to Malden, so many will go to Parma, so many will go to Lilburn. And I mean, it's just like, I kind of like take care of everybody I can.
You're kind of like the whole community's grandmama, aren't you?
Somewhat. I kind of like, yeah, because that, you know, and even in, it's bigger than here, even in St. Louis, even in Jeff City, even in Kansas City. My lieutenant governor said, who I love him to death, and he said, where can I go that they don't know your name? I told him I didn't know I was that popular. You know what I'm saying? Because I just do what I do. So it's not about you doing it for gratification. It's not about money, because when you work for the state, you know you ain't no money. And Lincoln ain't got none. You know what I'm saying? But it's because I care. And people along the way, like MOAC and mental health and Department of Public Safety, Department of Health and Senior Services, the Missouri Highway Patrol, Ameren. I mean, the list goes on, that I just reach out and say, I need, or can you help me get, or do you know where I can get, you know.
And you just care about your community and want to make sure that kids have at least as fair opportunity to have a future as anybody else can have. And part of that starts with, they got to eat right.
They got to
know that somebody cares about them.
That's it. And then, you know, I don't know the way things when I was little, I used to see people get commodities, and they would have powdered eggs, powdered milk, and they went to the food stamp, the paper food stamp. They got the EBT card. Well, things have a way of revolving, and I have in my mind, one of these days, the big diabolical plan is to move all of that, and they're going to either go back to the commodities they were giving them, or they're not going to have anything. So if you don't learn how to sustain yourself, because in the back of my mind, I just ain't decided who I'm going to ask. I need a commercial kitchen here, because I believe they need to learn how to can, how to preserve. And I watched during the Ukraine war how, you know, I got freezer, I got generator, but if you can't get none of that stuff to you, then those things are no good. But even if I learn to preserve, even if I can't heat it up, I'm not going to starve, because I can get that mason jar or the jar with the paraffin, and I can still eat. We need to learn how to be self-sufficient. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, America is a blessed country. But who is to say? Because Rome fell one day. I mean.
My grandmother used to say, when I was a little kid, she grew up, she was a Depression era girl, and she would tell me stories about it, and she'd always get really solemn and say, now, you know, your grandma's not telling you this to be a downer or to be depressing. She said, what I want you to understand is, if it got bad once, it can get bad again. And what I'm going to tell you is that if it gets bad again, when it gets bad again, you'll be all right once you learn that you have to do this together. You can't get past these bad times unless you got somebody that you're working with.
That's it. And you can't, you know, my steps aren't as faster as they used to be. My processing isn't as good. But, you know, God always blesses me with somebody that they help me keep the dream alive. You know what I'm saying? Until we get where we need to get. And as long as babies are born, it's still work out there to do. I mean, and, you know, I look at it through the stroke, through the cancer, through the heart problems, through this, through that. He sustained me. My steps are a little slower. Sometimes I don't think it's fast. You know what I'm saying? But he sustains me. And he keeps getting, I got more programs than I do in my head than Huck got pups. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's just rolling them out, because once you see a need where you used to could just address the need, now you have to come up with a justification. It has to fall up under this criteria. It has to fall up under that program or that agency. You know what I mean? So all of that goes into effect. Now, what I'm not good at, I'm not technical. I dislike technology. I'm computer illiterate almost, but I can check my email. I can do a little of this and that, but that's not my thing. But you can put me out in the community. I can stay out there all day. You know what I'm saying? Just doing what I do. Yeah.
So, in regards to like doing, let's call it just substance use or misuse prevention, what are some of the things that you've done or tried over the years that you're like, maybe you didn't even see it coming? It's like, well, I didn't think that was going to work, and then it turned out being a big success for you. Is there anything that you kind of remember across your time that was, I don't know, it'd have to even be a program, just something that you tried to do in your community to
Well, the one program we used to do, we started off with, used to come to that field day. And we started off at a school in Hayti. And then we graduated the next year up to the old Howardville School. And probably within 5 years, we were at the high school in New Madrid. And we went from 100 kids to over 3,300 registered parents and the children. And you could see on the fourth Saturday in October that you would see cars, and the governor would fly down every year. I mean,
what was your program like? What were you doing on that day?
Well, in the morning they would have prevention classes, and then in the evening we would, put on some kind of show. So, but all of it had to do with prevention and staying out of trouble. Yeah. So, and then I always done fed everybody good, But if we get in a room and we sit down, that's how you build relationships, you build trust, you begin to know, if I go too far to the right, I done upset Mr. Chuck, get back. Because you see what I'm saying?
I do.
So you learn. And when you learn what buttons not to push, but you can do that. And when you eating over food, you relaxed. You know what I'm saying? It's not, and people will talk politics when they sit down, but you're more apt to get some when they in a relaxed state of mind than when you come to them in your office and all that kind of stuff. So I had children, and so children don't have money, so they can't pay lobbyists because we didn't have no money. But what I did know how to do, I knew how to cook. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's how I did it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Now, do you find sometimes that some young person who's now grown up, that they remember some of the stuff that you've done, and maybe
some of them work for me now.
Is that right? Tell me about that.
I mean, it's just like they never forget, because they remember. I mean, these kids got it easy now. Me and my first babies, we had to pick up pecans and all that kind of stuff to get stuff. These kids right here, or if we go on a trip, it might be $28 a kid, and the parent didn't have the money, and so I would have to find sponsors for them. You know what I mean? But it was my goal that every kid in that community got to go someplace during the summer. So he can tell you there were times when we started with one bus, but at our height of going somewhere, I think we had 10 buses one year from across the Bootheel. So like from Kennett, Hayti, Portageville, Poplar Bluff, yeah. And we just had stations where the buses would stop, pick up kids, and then we all usually met in Lilburn, and then we would be trailing down the highway. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how many people do you have working for you and helping you now?
I don't know.
You have volunteers, or you have people that actually work for you? I mean,
Well,
like
you got paid staff.
some
'Cause
paid
like
staff,
we
yeah.
got now we have after school programs. So we have one here in Charleston at the Hearns Elementary. Is K through 8th grade, and then we have one in Malden. Well, it's 40 kids here. It's 45 kids in Malden. We have about 10 at Haywood City, and then, because that's a little small community, and then we getting ready to open up in Steele next month, so we'll have probably about 15, 20 in Steele. Then in the summertime, we have a total of 8, and we'll probably expand what we have with those 8.
So the people that are helping you, they come up under your
Some
guidance?
of them have.
Yeah.
Well, all the ones that work, they do. But we've had, like, I got some of the kids, the kids I had their parents, even their grandparents. You know? Yeah.
Well, you've been doing this since 1990, and
Yeah.
maybe even a little bit before then.
Well, really a little bit before then, but it wasn't like Lincoln based to 1990 when Lincoln came and said, would you duplicate, you know what I'm saying, in other areas, what you do here. So it wasn't about the money. You know, it has never been the money. But it's just my care and concern for my community, you know, and for my state. Yeah.
So I don't mean to be disrespectful by asking you this, but I'm curious. Did you get a formal education? Did you go to college and get a degree, or you just were such an impact or a presence in the community, they recognized you and just brought you into the fold?
I told you when we first started that I didn't go to school. So what you see is OJT. When I started for Lincoln, I was scared to turn on a computer. When I started for Lincoln, I couldn't do nothing. Now I can handle big budgets. You know what I'm saying? I've learned how to do that. I can make big presentations. You know what I'm saying? I can talk to whoever that I need to talk to, but Lincoln was my teacher. You know, so even though I didn't get the formal education, I was educated through extension about how to do things. And everybody, you know, that's why I keep mentioning, like minority health, the Department of Health and Senior Services, social service, the Highway Patrol. Those people have poured into me their knowledge. Because if I'm around you, I'm going to learn. Like with those buses, I knew what bus to take, what they taught me how to look out for other buses, and if they accelerated and black smoke came out, that meant that bus wasn't being maintained. I mean, everything I have gotten into, I've learned. You know what I'm saying? So kind of, sort of, I'm a wealth of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? So my BA, I don't have one. I'm born again. And my master is I know him. And my PhD is I pray hard daily. I mean,
I like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard, and I don't know if you listened to him or not, but the comedian Dave Chappelle, he said his mother told him when he was a little kid that they, in old ways, they had what they called a griot, and they were like the library before you wrote anything down, and you had to remember everything about the community, and then as you got older, you passed your knowledge on to somebody else. And he said that when somebody passed away, it was like a library burned to the ground. And I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm like, you're whether you knew it or not, you're the griot here in the community. You know a lot of the history, a lot of the people.
And I got a room back there. And they tell me, Sheryl, you need to clean out. I got 30 years worth of pictures. So you can look and see how communities have changed, people have changed. And, you know, I'm at that age now that it's a concern to me. And it was really weighing on me. Who is going to take over? Who can I find? Who is going to have that love? You can find a part of it here, a part of it there, but there's no place you can find that. And so it's like God spoke to me about a month ago, and he said, you know, yesterday is gone. You take care of today, and I got tomorrow. So I quit worrying about who. Because just like he got me,
Somebody will step up.
somebody,
or it'll be revealed to them, and then they'll
it'll
step
be
into it.
you know, I know what our needs are now, and you know, because anybody that has employees, it's hard to get people to work now. I mean, that's almost a dying art. I don't know if I could learn how that they can maintain without working. You know, I kind of would like to know that myself, but I can't worry about what's gonna happen when I'm gone, because it's too much on my mind to do while I'm here. Because when I'm gone, I'm gone. But you can believe this, it'll be another 100 years or better before anybody ever comes along that God will give the favor that he has given to me. I mean, and you know, it doesn't come without a struggle. You know what I'm saying? New levels, new devils. I mean, you know, and I can tell when something good gonna happen, because look like everything be going to hell in a handbasket. And then all of a sudden, da-da, you know.
Somehow it works out. Yeah.
Every time.
You're listening to Prevention Perk. The African American Behavioral Health Center of Excellence was developed by SAMHSA to address the urgent need for greater equity and effectiveness in behavioral health services for African Americans. They are determined to help our field transform behavioral health services for African Americans. Their web link is in the show notes, or visit africanamericanbehavioralhealth.org.
If you were telling somebody that was just getting started and they were in a community that would be same or similar to yours, what kind of advice would you give them, or what would you tell them to set them on the right path?
You gotta know your community. You gotta have a commitment. You know what I'm saying? You gotta look past. You know, you can't get in community because every community got their own gossip section or whatever. That's not what you're supposed to be in there doing. You're supposed to be in there to help the people. I remember when I went in one community and I would just see them, you know, in the projects, and I'd stop and get out and talk to them. And then I'd get a group of kids and put them in the van, and we'd go up to McDonald's and get an ice cream cone. And then after a while, it started growing. I couldn't get them all in there. And I would hit the neighborhood, and they'd run up to the van. They would see me. Then I said, I give away $1 a day. First one get to me, get the $1. And they would come when they would say, Miss Sheryl, anybody got the $1 yet? And they knew where it was, where I kept it in the van, and they would just go get it because they were the first one. And then, you know, that's what nothing. You got to have it here. You know, it's not about self-gain. It's not about how you want to see yourself. It's not about the praise. Because for real, I'm really shy. People don't believe that, but I really am. If I'm not talking about what I do or something to do that's related to communities, it's really not a lot to say. Probably 90% of the time I'm by myself. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing for me, arity breeds contentment. And once people get content, you can't do nothing with them. I mean, they're not going to listen to you.
Well, this is the first time you and I've met in person, and it didn't take me long to realize you just lead from your heart.
I mean, I don't know nothing.
Or you're being led from your heart, whichever way that works. So what do you think the challenges are that are facing your community now, both maybe around drugs or alcohol, or even just systemic things? What do you think's the real?
I think that they don't have a care about life. You know what I'm saying? It's just like they take it, you know, I'm here, and they take it for granted. And, you know, the violence, when I said the other day, you know, you got to feel sorry for kids. You're not safe at school. You're not safe at the grocery store. You're not safe at the movies. You're not safe at home. You know, kids where we could go after school, change our clothes, go outside and play. You know, a lot of kids are afraid to go outside because it's the sporadic shootings, or, you know, people just shooting guns up in the air, just all kind of crazy stuff, or people flip. the mental health challenges that are here, because you gotta have compassion for that mother whose son just did that killing because she tried to get him help. You know what I'm saying? But we got so much rigmarole and red tape that it's kind of hard sometimes to get the help to those who really need it, because Jesus be done come before you get it. You know what I'm saying? It's too much red tape. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be a faster way. And then, my opinion, when they took social programs out, you know what I'm saying? So kids didn't have nowhere to go to and nothing to do. I was always told idle mind is the devil's workshop. So if I don't have anything to do, then I find something to do, whether it's positive or negative. I'm going to find something to do. And at the end of the day, everybody should know bad draw good before good draws bad.
I heard the term rag picker one time, and I was like, that's what kept coming to mind. It's like you just see that there's something that's down and out here, and it's like you just pick it up, find something new in it, and turn it around and move on.
I mean, that's what you have to do.
Well, we've talked about a lot of things, and I don't know if you had anything in mind before we got here, but is there anything that you want to make sure we hear about before we go?
I can't think of nothing, but just to say thank you for coming. That you think my story is interesting enough to discuss with somebody.
Thank you for listening to Prevention Perk, a podcast from Mid-America PTTC. To learn more about our innovations, visit PTTC Network and look under Your PTTC for the Mid-America link. Remember, prevention is better together, and together we are stronger.